I don't think I can overstate a basic fact of practically any creative work we do. It almost seems to be the case that whatever we do on day one, we see something better on day 2 or 3. That's one of the great reasons to work with smart objects, layers, layer masks, and a multitude of different versions of the project we're working on. Now I think I have an excellent example here of what I mean. It was a couple of days after recording this video, the main video where we created the Silver Man, that I was looking through a group of pictures for a completely different reason and spotted this wall of graffiti. Now the wall was very colourful and not suitable for a backdrop to our Silver Man, but of course if we give it exactly the same treatment that we did in the video, the monochrome treatment, subdue the highlights and give it a little bit of blur, well, we get quite a change to the image. Now, in addition to that extra background, and this is another good reason to hang on to your layers, masks and smart objects for as long as you can, is this. If I go back into my layers, if I turn this layer off for a moment just to remind you of the image we first created, but I think with just that day or so away from the creative thought, we can often find something that works marginally better. But we also still have the image of the man here as a smart object, albeit that the subject of these tutorials is monochrome. I'm going to double click this guy. We can open up straight back into Camera Raw, and what I could decide to do here is to replace the saturation. In fact, I could even enhance the vibrance too. Click OK and take a look at the result. So although my variations here are slipping away from our monochrome subject, I think they had enough merit when they appeared on screen to mention them. But once I saw the coloured guy in front of the background, then I wanted to add a little bit of colour in the background, but something in keeping with him, and the obvious choice there would be to sepia tone it. So Control U to bring up the hue and saturation, tick the colorize box, something around 24 in the hue, maybe 6, 8 or 10 in the background. Sometimes it can be a bit too warm, you can go down a bit more if you wish, to 4. But there we've got a completely different image to the monochrome one we started with. Now here's another image that you'll recall from an earlier video, and I've had to go back to a point when we still had the image in its smart object status before we did the work on the cones and the intruding board on the bottom left and the final touches, but none of those were very difficult or time consuming. And I brought you back to this because one of the things I've always said about great colour images, if you manipulate the image correctly and you get a good spread of tones right the way across the image, a good spread of colour, nothing burnt out, just touching the blacks, just touching the whites, so we get that sparkle we're looking for, then if we wanted to just convert it using the black and white tools, then that image 99 times out of 100 will convert to a monochrome pretty well. But of course it works the other way too. Let me take you back to the layers. Let me go back to the smart object I've got sitting here, double click, open this back up into Adobe Camera Raw and just put the saturation back where it came from. Now this is my own image, but am I allowed to say it isn't bad, is it? The only thing that really lets it down is the fact that we was unfortunate enough to have a red aircraft parked just behind it. But with the desaturation controls in Photoshop, I don't think that's a great problem. Now looking at this image, we do have quite a bit of blue, particularly in the clouds, but we could take the view that it doesn't actually hurt the image greatly. But of course, if we wanted to make a change to that, then at this stage, and making a global change with the temperature, just moving a little bit to the right while looking at the image, and we can return the clouds to a much more natural colour. But my guess is we're all going to choose something slightly different.